What is going on? I'm KM Best, and I am back with another Thanos video. I promise you it is for a good reason. As you know, I have been experimenting with a ton of Thanos shells this week, and it seems to have rubbed off on one of my good friends. His name is W, formerly known as WW Los or Wowalos, and he won the most recent Snap Battle Arena with a build of Thanos that I think is a nice evolution from the previous builds that I've showed you in recent videos. So I got him on this channel so we could do a little bit of an interview, a deck breakdown with the guy who created the deck. So I hope you enjoy that content, and as always, thank you so much for watching. Let's jump into that interview with my boy W. Thanks again. I am joined by the former WW Los, the current W, because he only gets Ws. His latest W came in the form of winning the most recent Snap Battle Arena tournament with a unique take on Thanos, and it's actually interesting because so many Thanos lists seem to have converged on similar packages, and this is another one that is playing, five cost cards. Most of them end up being close to 5/3 or 5/4, of course. But in order to support that, we see the interesting inclusion of Psylocke and a lot less 3 costs than the list that I was playing most recently. So, Dub, welcome to the program. Introduce yourself to the people.
Yeah, W, artist formerly known as Double Los, WWLS, Wawalos. Had all the names, that's why we're just going with W nowadays.
Yes.
It's way easier for the people, especially in things like this when, casters are trying to figure out what to say. W is easy.
W is easy. And apparently it was pretty easy for you today to pick up a lot of W's en route to your tournament win. I heard you lost in the first round and then just didn't lose any other matches the entire day.
Yeah, so what's that make that, like 10 straight? Right? What's the math on
through
that?
The top 8, right? Because it would have been 9 straight, right?
9 straight. Yeah. That was, no wonder I'm so tired. I'm exhausted. And yeah, I know you were saying I need to stream more. I actually streamed the first 6 hours of this thing. I turned it off in the semis because I needed to really focus.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been going hard for like 9 hours. Sheesh.
Yeah.
But it was worth it. I've been really wanting this qualification.
I'm glad you got it. Like that's actually back-to-back weeks for like, we're just going back-to-back, like just people that I root for are winning, right? Like it's going great.
Yeah.
So I do want to talk to you about the list specifically, because I think this is actually like a really good take on how Thanos is supposed to be played. And there are a couple cards I want to ask you about specifically that I think are going to stick out to most people as odd, but I'm actually with you on them for the most part. So I just want to give you the floor, though, because it's your baby. I want you to tell me about this. I will say this right off the bat. Psylocke absolutely convinced me during the tournament. I watched you play, and I was like, Psylocke, all right, I totally get it. Tell me a little bit about Psylocke in this deck.
First off, is hell frozen over?
Not awesome. That I've checked, but we are running so many 5-cost cards, and our power line of just playing a turn 4 Professor X is so important in order for us to even have a chance in so many matchups. Like, Psylocke, for me, it's like, it's not even just like, oh, we're doing it to scam. It's also like kind of Killmonger counterplay if we can get an early Profex out.
100%. So, yeah, oh man, you should see the smile hearing you say that you love Psylocke in this list. That's a great moment for me.
No, but I do. It works. It makes perfect sense to me. Like, the amount of times I play Thanos decks and I'm like, all right, I need a Time Stone here. She's just another Time Stone. She's way worse, but you like Psylocke into Profex into Spider-Man is like your #1 scam plan. It's great.
Yeah, and since she is a turn 3 play, that's what she is. You always usually have something to pair with her in a stone. So the turns don't feel as bad as they should for how one power feels. So it really, like, in the system of the list, and I've been playing a version of this list for like 3 months. The last 2 Swisses like these I've played, I've gone 5-2. One of them I did make top 8 cut with 5-2. The other I didn't, and it was sad because one of my losses in that was like an internet DC. That was back when I was having really bad internet problems. So I really probably should have made 3 cuts with a version of this list. A list with Psylocke, Claw, Spider-Man, Professor X, like these weirdo cards. Like this has been a thing I've been doing for a while, and I'm so happy to finally see it pull through well today. And I think the meta aligned for it, but it's been a good list.
I do want to talk about the meta specifically because I've been very in on Thanos recently because so many people are doing things that are like late game explosions, and so early Professor X is just like completely bonkers. And so I think that's a lot of what pushed this list towards the forefront, right? Because if you look at the difference between this list and the most recent lists on my YouTube, it's actually like all Thanos decks right now are constructed fairly similarly. So I think the breakthroughs you had personally were Psylocke and Iron Lad. And I'd like you to, we talked about Psylocke, so tell me a little bit about Iron Lad.
About Iron Lad, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm getting close to just after like the successes I've had with Iron Lad recently, not just in this deck, but like all the Darkhawk decks I was running with it. I'm getting pretty close to saying it's the best card in the game, or at least top 5. Like I am so in on this thing. You know, I don't want to overrate it because that's what we've been doing with Iron Lad this whole time since it came out, but it just wins games.
I mean, I watched in the semifinals where it rando rolled a Professor X, and that was the only way he won that game. And like, it just like that's the upside. The upside is it literally wins you the game, and the downside is like it's usually a stone that draws you a card, which is pretty good.
Yeah, no, it's in cards that can in decks that can maximize the value of it out of it. It's just unbeatable. Not unbeatable, but it's just so good. I don't know, the high rolls are so high.
You. Like the numbers are so big. I do have 2 Iron Lad mechanics questions for you. One I know the answer to, but I just want to get on record, and the other one I don't. Iron Lad, if it copies Power Stone, it'll buff Thanos, right?
I believe so, because it's ongoing, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever actually run into that interaction, but I believe so, yes.
So there's another one that I actually don't know the answer to is, if it copies another stone and you have the Power Stone, it doesn't count as that stone, correct?
I don't believe so.
Okay. So those are the things really that, like, if you're going to play this list, you should be aware of. Finally,
yeah,
I want to draw your attention to the card that I found the least compelling in the list. And even though I watched it be really good, I still found it a little bit non-compelling, and that's Cosmo. So tell me a little bit about Cosmo.
Well, Cosmo just fills in this slot where, like, in this meta, if you can get the right reads, it can end the game. If you can get the right read on where they're throwing Beast, you can end the game that way with the right initiative. And you can kind of plan around these kind of things when you really feel out your opponent. If you get the right read on where Surfer's going, ends the game. If you get the right read on a Destroy deck, can end the game. It's just like the beauty of Thanos in general is that you get a lot of wiggle room with tech and options. Like the worst card in this deck is probably Luke Cage, but it was there for tech. And you know, what do I even really replace it with? Maybe Chavez. I think that's what Lambie would say. But at the same time, I don't need it. Like it just works. Everything kind of comes together.
I'm actually a Luke Cage.
So Cosmo's a very affordable tech.
I'm actually a Luke Cage truther in Thanos decks. I think it's actually just phenomenal. Like, I played it a ton of stuff right now. So I actually don't think that's the worst card in the deck.
Yeah, it was to me today. It did very little. And today had like no high evo, and I didn't get too much lane luck out of it. And I kept thinking, man, if this was Chavez or like the card I kept thinking was like maybe Angela even. Just because you do have Jeff, you do have the stone, move stone. It's an interesting thing I maybe would want to try. But at the same time, like I in our kind of some of our chats, I had seen y'all testing Luke in a lot of lists, and then I saw the anomaly list and the KGB list that had been winning tournaments recently, and I was like, okay, so if those lists that are kind of similar to this list I've been running for 3 months is still really good, I'm just going to bring this back out today. I had not really played this list in like a few weeks because I've been doing all that Darkhawk stuff.
Yes.
And I was like, if Anomaly is going to be really good with this, I'll do mine, because I do think my list is just better. I beat that list today. It's good. I think this is better in the mirror. You just do more stuff. I don't like Valkyrie personally.
No, absolutely. You absolutely crush them. Like that doesn't even seem like a question, right? And that's part of why I like Luke Cage, because Luke Cage just turns off Valkyrie entirely. And so I think Luke Cage is a little less valuable for your proactive plan in here, because you're not running your own Valkyrie. But when I played the Anomaly list, I was like, I kind of want Ghost in here to do Valkyrie more because she just wasn't very good. And you were just like, what if we didn't do that and instead just played Claw? Like, what if we just didn't even bother with the Valkyrie stuff, even though we're running Luke Cage? What if we just played like a better 5? And I think that's pretty. I think that's pretty clever.
Well, I've had success with it, so I knew it was viable. And if I see a list that is very similar to mine and people are running with it, it's time to bring her back out. Because I always thought this list had a lot of potential. And I do have to give you credit for Luke Cage. All your Luke Cage love lately is what made me throw it in there. And I don't think it was like a bad card. I just think it was the worst card in a very good deck.
I do have to give you credit for the worst card in this deck. Thanks, man. I really appreciate that. What I mean? That really makes me feel so much better. Okay, so I do want to move on to, I think, a question a lot of people are going to have. 5 cost cards. How necessary is that?
100%. That's the whole deck.
That's the whole deck. So you would not cut a single one of them ever. Like I would assume that Claw or Blue Marvel are the worst ones. You wouldn't even think about
it. Maybe for another 5-drop.
Okay, no consideration whatsoever. We are pure Psylocke on 3 scammers. That's what we're doing here.
Yeah, this deck does what it does, and it does it well. If I think you can play. If you can feel out the lines and feel out the locations, you can find ways to win.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with that. If you had to make any changes, give me a list of cards you want to get in here, but just weren't able to do it.
Chavez is always something I want in Thanos, but I decided it didn't belong this time because I did want the extra 5. I think I can look at some of my old lists. Like, there's cards in my old list you just despise. Like, this used to have Giganto when we were trying to match getting big with some of the bigger stuff.
That is heinous.
I know you would hate it. What else is there? If I scroll down, I've tweeted these lists before. But, like, that's not what I'd want to replace it with. But probably, I like the Angela. I think Angela's unique in here. It can kind of give you a little more in a lane than you thought you could. I think it's a good card in Thanos. I have to look over the 5-drops, but like, there's a lot to consider in the 5-drops if you don't want to play Claw and Blue Marvel. You can get weird. You can try I really didn't get to test it, but I was curious what Doc Ock could do with this kind of lockdown plan.
That is interesting. Kind of curious. Like as a Doc Ock Shang-Chi deck, it would be over Spider-Man. I would assume.
Maybe. But it's something I was thinking about.
Yeah. One question I do want to ask you, though, is tell me a little bit about Killmonger matchups, which are just always terrifying with Thanos lists. Like, Killmonger is just an absolutely terrifying card for you to see. You navigated 2 Killmonger matchups to end up getting through the semifinals and the finals. Both people you were playing against had Killmonger. I honestly thought you were unfavored in both. How did you pull that off? And what tips would you give to other people who find themselves in those situations?
Always assume they have it. You have to play the entire game assuming your ones are dying, and don't depend on them. Now, if you can get lucky enough, you still want to put them in the best position to win, just in case they don't draw it, but you need to have that in mind the entire time. Yeah, the Surfer list, I didn't feel super unfavored. I thought maybe it was 50-50 just because it was so random. It's really hard to figure out how I'm going to win that game. And then, like, weird things are happening in that game where you got, like, a second invisible woman off some location.
Yes.
And that, it was a mess. But, yeah, that last round, don't know how I won. Don't even think I played all that well for the first some of those matches. But,
I think you did make one notable misplay, which was where you put the Professor X in the first game of the set. I was just like, you're always putting that you're never putting them on that location. It's always one of the other two. And I do think that other than that, though, I think you were just extremely clean. Although I do think once you lost the 4, you started playing a little conservative and didn't juice as much as you probably could have. Outside of that, I think you basically played perfectly. Like outside of maybe 2 or 3 situations in the entire set, I think you basically nailed it.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I definitely noticed, especially some of those games where I'm just sitting there on 6, like, I win this. Why didn't I snap? I was playing pretty conservative in a lot of ways, in a lot of places, which is not something I usually do. But my first finals, I was a little nervous, and I was in a bad matchup. This was super unfavored. But I really do think this deck finds ways, so especially if you can know the lines.
tell me a little bit about what you want to see with this deck and what you don't want to see. If someone were to take this deck onto ladder or into conquest, what would you be like, oh hell yeah, I got them? And what would you be like, oh man, I don't like that at all?
Don't get too cute with the ideas. You have a plan, follow the plan. Don't like start throwing like armors in this. You don't want that. You don't need to protect your 1-drops. You're not winning with 1-drops. This for the most part, this is a pretty clean shell. If you want to mess with some of the 5-drops, I'm not going to blame you. If you want to mess with Luke, or if you maybe aren't a Shane guy for some reason, I want Shane.
I don't think you're ever cutting Shane.
That's a better one.
It's not
Yeah,
Shane.
you need Shane.
It's like Cosmo.
No, it's Cosmo and Luke.
Yeah.
If you want to mess with those, be my guest. I do think this kind of list is not even that good in open deck list. I think this kind of list thrives in a conquest situation where they just can't predict Professor X Spider-Man Claw.
There's just too much.
That was one of my biggest.
Just too much.
Way too much.
And like
it was one of my biggest concerns today with open list was like, how am I gonna get 8 cubes ever?
Yeah, the answer was, I think, as far as I can tell, the answer was you just kind of didn't. Once you hit the top 8, you just did not get any 8 cubers. It just never happened. But on ladder in a closed decklist situation where people aren't really expecting this, especially because right now it's a little bit of a rogue brew. Like people like me who've been playing a lot of Thanos know the play patterns. But if you don't know the play patterns and like, if you're playing a time stone and they snap on 5, the fact that you can even just bluff that. There was a game in the finals where you snapped on 5 without Professor X, and I was like, I don't even know if we win this, but they left. And I was just like, oh man, that is like such a demonstration of just how dangerous this deck can be.
Yeah, once they get the line figured out, like they have to respect a lot of it, which gets you in a really solid position. You can take advantage of that big time.
Yeah. All right, so plug your stuff. Tell everyone who you are and where they can find you, and what your streaming schedule is. You need to make a streaming schedule, dude.
I have one outlined. It's on my Twitch. It's down there in like the information. W streaming is my Twitch. W streaming.
There's an underscore in there. W. Is there an underscore or is there no underscore?
On Twitch it's just W streaming.
Okay, Twitch W streaming.
You're thinking on Twitter it's W_Marvel Snap.
There we go.
So that's and that's where I'm posting most things. I'm pretty active on there. But stream wise, I'm trying to really do it. It's hard with my work schedule in life, but Wednesday nights, Saturday mornings, like I streamed I think 7 hours today or something like that, the first 10 rounds or whatever. So I'm going to try to do Saturday morning tournaments. I was going to do that more when I was kind of qualified, but I'll still do it. And I'm going to try to stream on Sundays as well. So Sundays, I don't know when, time-wise, but I'll post it on Twitter. So Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday.
And your Twitter is, just one more time?
At W_Marvel Snap.
Absolutely. So, W, thank you so much for coming on. And I'm super, super proud of you for pulling this off, because once I saw your list in action, I was like, oh, dude, that's just the list I was playing, but it's better. Like, once I saw it happen, I was like, oh, I get it. That's actually legit. It's just what I was doing, but better. And so, like, that is something that I consider, like, super, super impressive, right? Because I was trying to take this a different direction. I was like, let's lean into Valkyrie. And you were just like, no, Valkyrie's terrible. We're not going to play her. We're doubling down on scams. We're only scamming. And I will say, I do kind of just want to put the Psylocke in the other list, because, like, that would be tripling down on scams, because now we have, like, Prof X, Psylocke, Valkyrie stuff if we want it. There's some interesting stuff going on there. But as long as Killmonger is as popular as it is, I think this list has a pretty significant advantage in the sense that it's not relying on your lanes to be full. So right now I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, that's what I would want to play if I play Thanos.
That's cool. I appreciate that. I really do appreciate that coming from you. I respect you a ton. You know that. So this is cool. This has been fun. What a good day. I'm having a good time. I'm about to go get a beer. This is fun.
I'm glad you had a good day. Thank you so much for sharing your good day with me, my channel, YouTube, and everyone watching in Twitch right now. W, thank you. It's been a pleasure. Can't wait to see you next time you come on when you win another tournament.